Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer, where we take fascinating ideas and just break them down so you can truly grasp the core of the message. Today, we're looking at a brilliant piece of writing that, well, at first glance, it might just look like your standard holiday greeting. But as we're going to see, it actually holds a profoundly deep sociological critique. It's a short manifesto titled Childlike Leaders of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, and it uses the lens of childhood to examine some of the absolute heaviest problems facing our adult world today. Right off the bat, I want to hook you with this central question drawn directly from the text. When did we lose our sweet innocence to subtle pride? It's quite a thought, isn't it? The author challenges us to reflect deeply on this. She argues that massive systemic issues, specifically things like racial and gender troubles, they don't just appear out of nowhere. Instead, she traces their very origins back to this specific loss. She suggests that these huge societal divides begin the exact moment we trade our natural, sweet innocence for subtle pride. It's really a powerful way to reframe how we look at prejudice. Now, before we go any further into her framework, let's introduce the mind behind these insights, Oyumi Ola David. She's a Nigerian author and thinker who describes herself first and foremost as someone who just loves people. But her vision, it goes way beyond the local level. She's deeply concerned about global development and transformation. In her own words, she aims to generate solutions, provide clarity, and influence policy and global strategy. She also grounds her worldview spiritually, stating that her Father God owns and rules the universe, and she beautifully describes him as the wheel within my wheels. So, how exactly does she apply this childlike lens to global strategy? Well, she draws a pretty sharp contrast regarding human development. She states that our development as a society literally slows down when we make a specific sacrifice. And what is that sacrifice? It's when we trade family-friendly policies for what she calls economic correctness. Instead of prioritizing the foundational unit of the family, the space that really nurtures children, she argues we often become rigidly obsessed with pure economic metrics. And as a result, our true human development just stalls out. Now, what's really interesting about her perspective here is how she explains the persistence of human conflict. Like, why don't we keep fighting? According to her, human conflicts persist because we undergo this tragic transformation as we age. We basically give up childlike cooperative play. Think about how kids naturally invent games and collaborate just for the sheer joy of it, right? Well, she says we trade that innate cooperation for unfair competitive struggles. We essentially stop playing together and start fighting each other for dominance. And this ideological shift leads to one of the most striking metaphors in her entire piece. She warns against consuming the bread of ancient arrogance. Just let that phrase sink in for a second. The bread of ancient arrogance. It's incredibly poetic, but man, it carries a heavy critique of the adult ego. She uses this metaphor to describe the exact mechanism that causes the human mindset to just stagnate. To break that metaphor down a bit more, she's illustrating a transaction that happens in our minds. She argues that the human mindset stagnates when we literally sell off our childlike curiosity in exchange for that bread of ancient arrogance. Think about it. Children are endlessly curious. They ask why about absolutely everything. But as adults, she suggests we trade that open-minded curiosity for a false sense of knowing it all, that ancient arrogance. And once we think we know everything, our mindset completely stops growing. It's a dead end. So the crucial point is how these internal mindset shifts lead to external societal damage. She links the escalation of human vices directly to this transition, describing it as dropping the baton of childlike contentment. Kids can often find joy in the absolute simplest things. But as we grow up, she says we drop that baton so we can run on these greedy sprints. We lose our baseline contentment in this frantic, exhausting race for more, which she argues is the very root of escalating societal vices. And if we keep going on these greedy sprints, we reach a very bleak destination, which she captures in another profound piece of imagery. She warns against trading our light for a cold stove of despair. It's such a stark, physical image, isn't it? I mean, a stove is meant to provide warmth, to provide sustenance. But a cold one, it offers absolutely nothing. Let's look at the logic of this extinguished flame. She writes that our humanity wanes when we put out the childlike flames of hope for that cold stove. She deeply connects our shared humanity to our capacity for innate hope and faith. Children are naturally hopeful. When we allow the harsh realities of the adult world to extinguish those childlike flames, replacing them with this cold, cynical despair, she argues it's not just our mood that suffers, our very humanity actively wanes, it diminishes. Okay, let's pivot for a moment. After unpacking all of this heavy, profound sociological critique about arrogance, despair, and systemic conflict, it's pretty amazing to realize the original context of her message. She actually published these insights on May 27, 2021, to accompany a bright, cheerful Happy Children's Day graphic featuring cartoon kids and animals from Lantern books. The contrast between this joyful visual and her deep philosophical text, it perfectly highlights her point. We really need to look closer at childhood if we want to fix the adult world. And this brilliantly illustrates who she's actually speaking to. She didn't just dedicate this to the children of Nigeria. She specifically dedicated her message to 3 distinct groups of adults. First, to all who dare to remain children at heart, acknowledging that, hey, it actually takes courage to keep that innocence. Second, to all who esteem childlike love, hope, and faith, holding those virtues in high regard. And third, to all who care to actually save the children, reinforcing her focus on wholesome education and global peace. All of these observations, they culminate in her overarching thesis, the ultimate solution she presents for the world's problems. She believes that the human race will only blossom peacefully if we do 2 things. We must stay childlike in our hearts, and we must stay circular to save the planet. It's such a fascinating combination, isn't it? She merges the internal, emotional state of being a child with the external, macroeconomic strategy of a circular, sustainable system. Let's move to and see how this builds into her broader global strategy. We can see how she connects the micro, the individual's childlike traits, to the macro through the hashtags she chose to include at the end of her post. Alongside hashtags for peace and wholesome education, she included hashtag circular economy, hashtag sustainable development, and hashtag save the planet. She's drawing a direct line here. You simply cannot have a sustainable, circular economy or save the planet if the people running it are operating out of ancient arrogance and greedy sprints. You literally need childlike cooperative play to make global sustainability actually work. Which leave us with a final provocative thought to wrap up today's explainer. Based on Oluyomi Oladavid's brilliant framework, how can you apply this concept of childlike circularity in your own life today? Like, where can you trade a competitive struggle back for cooperative play? Where can you replace a cold stove of despair with a childlike flame of hope? Because as she so beautifully explains, saving the planet doesn't just start with economic policies, it starts by daring to remain a child at heart. Think about that as you go through your day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.